Well, thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day. So I'd like to kick off firstly with the agenda that we will be taking you through today. So from a housekeeping standpoint, for those who haven't used MEO before, on the right-hand side, you will see that there is a chat that you can ask questions as you go. So this is as interactive as possible from a question standpoint. Please ask your questions and I will be able to moderate those questions and either answer them or pass them over to Ian. So this session is also recorded for the team. So yeah, Prakash, thank you for the question. So the actual session will be recorded with a link that will be sent to the invitees only for you to be able to watch and ask any questions that you've got directly to Ian and myself, because you'll have our details after it as well. So from an introduction standpoint, I'm Robert Jersek. I'm the CEO of OneKloudX. And today we are lucky to have Ian, who is the founder of eftsure, and I'll let Ian introduce himself.
Thanks, Robert. Hi, everybody. My name's Ian Mirrells. I'm a chartered accountant. I trained with Ernst & Young, and in my role as a CFO working at a property company, I authorized a payment that didn't arrive at its intended recipient. On discovery with the banks, at the time it was ANZ, established that banks do not match account names to account numbers. This was in 2014, and I was immediately aware that that was going to be a real problem for finance departments, in that it would be very difficult to check BSB account numbers without any relevance to the actual account name of who you were paying. So I founded eftsure with my two partners who've got technology backgrounds, had built software for the banks over 20 years, and here we are today. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Ian. So just from a OneKloudX standpoint, like I mentioned, I'm Rob Jersek. I started this business 4 years ago now, and it was on the premise of helping organizations out there get the right information in front of them at the right time. And it was predicated purely around NetSuite, because previously I was involved in the NetSuite ecosystem before going to KPMG. And I was getting a number of requests of how do I do this? How do I get this data? How do I visualize this bit of information? How do I bring particular save searches together? And the whole business started from supporting NetSuite clients out there and has grown now to be over 60 clients across Australia and New Zealand. So from that growth, we have basically brought other solutions in to the fold with us that are based on the particular true cloud on the internet, no on-premise solutions out there that manage and synchronize as you grow your business and manage your business. So that was the premise of building that, of building our business. And since then we've implemented over 100 NetSuite implementation sites across Australia, across manufacturing, non-for-profit, financial services, and software sectors as well. So like I mentioned, we basically partner also with other technology providers out there like eftsure in being able to connect systems back to the financial systems or back to the Salesforce or other technologies like Elmo as well. So there's the like of Fast4 that we manage and support, Infinite Cloud from a payroll standpoint, Soligo integrations, Deputy, particularly if you're in the hospitality perspective, managing time and attendance, Easy Collect from a payment standpoint, and like I mentioned, eftsure, which I will also take you through later, how we have integrated and have worked with the solution to synchronize the two products together so you can manage your payments without any issues and the confidence of knowing that it's going to the right person. So I'll hand over to Ian to take you through the eftsure solution and how it and the value we can provide with to your organization. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to screen share and just cut over to presentation. If everybody can just confirm if they can see my screen. Rob, can you see the
Perfect.
screen?
Thank you, Ian.
Sorry, you can, yep.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so cybercrime is a huge problem, which we're seeing these articles in the press almost daily now. It's affecting all businesses, irrespective of size or industry. And of particular relevance is a research report that was published by the ACCC that statistically now payment fraud has risen fivefold in the last 12 months. It is a global issue, but of particular relevance to us in Australia is the statistics in blue. And if you look at the 90% stat at the bottom, that's showing that majority of these attacks begin with an email. Now, what we're seeing is a majority of businesses are collecting vital information like bank account details via an email process. It could be a tax invoice that comes into the business with bank account details on the invoice, but importantly, as we said, it's coming via email. Or we're also seeing organizations collect bank accounts by way of forms, emailing forms out and getting that back by email with suppliers' details. All of that is now very high risk because, as we discussed, email compromise is rising exponentially. And the gap that is being exploited is this the fact that banks don't match account names to account numbers. All organizations have got some internal control system process, some more sophisticated than others. But the reality is irrespective of how good a business's own internal controls and systems are, it's actually often their trading partner systems that are being compromised, and they then become the recipient of that compromised data. And we do see, we're seeing all these ERPs are really good, great transactional processing, but they don't deal with data integrity. And that's what eftsure does. Audits are very important as well, but often after the event. And we're seeing that internal controls in finance departments are not keeping up with digital transformation. So it's not just one issue that we, alerted to the banks not matching, but it's a combination of manual controls, ERPs being isolated, and the vulnerability of emails. And the problem's not going anywhere. The fraudsters are making huge amounts of money, and it's quite easy for them to perpetuate. And importantly, they're not getting caught. So at eftsure, we've developed a solution which we call Know Your Payee. And what we do for our customers is we provide real-time alerts in their internet banking screen just before CFO authorizes and releases a payment. So in this example over here, what we're showing you using phone company top line, what we're saying here is that phone company will be receiving that $27,000 because, as we mentioned, it's too difficult to know who 565487 account belongs to. And beyond that confirmation of payee, we then help our customers with compliance, ABN and GST compliance, and beyond that, out of range and duplicate payments. And our mission at eftsure is to continue to build and alert our clients with information for them to know everything about their payees. What a lot of our customers will do is they will scan or check the ABA file in our portal. So our solution is delivered as a web-based portal, and they get those same alerts that you saw on screen previously down the left-hand side, which is, as I said, a different area in which you can get that type of information. Compliance is not easy to manage without technology. I don't know if anybody saw this article which appeared in the press. And the way we're solving the problem and what allows us to provide these alerts for our customers is this massive database that we've been building since 2014. We're now protecting over $7 billion of payments per month, and we've got over 2,000 businesses in our ecosystem. So the way the eftsure methodology works is the very first thing that we'll do for our customers is we'll verify the integrity of their vendor master file, and we'll provide them an exception report across 8 categories. I'll show you what that looks like. And that's the first value add that we provide. Beyond that, the obvious change to the vendor master file once we've done a cleanse is new suppliers onboarding and existing supplier change requests. And what happens at this point is our customer suppliers will onboard through our portal. We will verify their information, and we'll serve that information up as verified in bank account details to our customers for them to then either data capture into the ERP, an accounting system, as they're currently doing with a tax invoice or form, but also with working with system integrators like Rob and team, integration from our solution direct into the ERP, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So once we've dealt with vendor management and new supplier onboarding, what is important beyond that is when the supplier gets paid, which might be 7, 14, 30 days later, we do that check again, either at the ABA file level or payment in screen, internet banking screen. It's important to do that check because there is still risk between timeline 2 and 3, right? Risk from internal changes, external hacks, suppliers changing their details before you need to pay them. So that's why the methodology ensures the check at the beginning and the check at the end. This is the exception report that I mentioned, where we will, across 8 categories, identify any issues in your existing vendor master file. And what we're seeing is a 25% risk rate across all vendor master files. It's not always fraud or error, but it's risk. A lot of invalid, cancelled ABNs, but it also could be incorrect bank account details. This is where you would get visibility of, once we start the implementation process, is which of your suppliers are verified, which aren't, who still needs to be. And by the time we complete our implementation, we typically land on a 90% strike rate. We'll then troubleshoot the remaining non-verified suppliers with you, and there's different techniques that we deploy to do that. And then what we will do is we will sit with your AP team, and we'll establish what information do you want from your supplier. Now, every organization is different. Some organizations only want, names and your contact details and bank account details for payment. Others want that plus contracts, rating cards, certificates of currency. They might want supplier trade of conduct sign-offs, modern slavery, payment times reporting. So it's totally flexible. We'll customize that with you. And then what happens is you as a customer would invite your supplier to come to our portal and get verified using our 3 techniques. So importantly, yes, an email is going out to the supplier from you. It's not from us. The email goes out from you, but they're not providing any information by email. That's critical. They come into our portal. We're then pinging our database, and we're doing what we're calling here step 1, which is the cross-matching. And we will provide an alert real time on that particular supplier. If for some reason we don't have that supplier in our database, we'll then resort to two other techniques, bank link and telephone call verification. So importantly, by the time your supplier is onboarded, all their details are verified. As I mentioned, this is just a visual of different organizations requiring having different requirements of what they want from their supplier. These risks in an organization are not easy to manage these days without technology, with the explosion of cybercrime, and in particular payment fraud as a subset of the bigger cybercrime umbrella. And multiple stakeholders get the benefit. It's not just finance and AP. We're seeing a lot now from the board saying to the exec, how are we dealing with cybercrime? The answer we're typically hearing is around training and awareness. And now, companies got an opportunity to deploy a technology solution to assist in that mitigation as well. So while our solution definitely protects an organization from, financial loss, reputational damage through a payment fraud, importantly, it also provides workflow efficiency, real ROI, and time savings in that finance teams don't need to do that heavy lifting, callbacks, other checks to ABR, etc. We do all of that for you. We do know at point of payment, some, part of any good turn of control is to do some sample checking. We don't do so, and that's a manual process. With our solution, it's 100% check on all the payment lines, both quantitative and qualitative. Nobody's doing what we do, which is at a point of payment, a real time using a proprietary database as a preventative and detective solution. And our customers range from large listed organizations, government, schools, hospitals, across all industries. We've got over 650 customers. Any finance department is a potential customer, and most importantly, our churn is less than 1%. So we've got really happy customers and referenceable. Powerful partnerships as well. PwC, really happy in the Big Four accounting firm area. System integrators, really happy to be partnering with OneKloudX and in the team, and then across different verticals as well. We've got partnerships. Extensive security testing has been done on our solution, including Westpac Bank and other organizations. And importantly, deploying the eftsure solution is a very low impact time resource requirement for our customers. We do the majority of the heavy lifting, and we estimate on a non-integrated basis, just standalone, anything from a week to 4 weeks, depending on size of organization, number of suppliers, the extent of the suppliers we've already got pre-verified. But importantly, when we talk about that 4 weeks or 1 week, majority of that is us. It's us doing the verification, the cleansing, etc. From your time perspective, only a couple of hours or days, depending on how big, what we need of your time, we're up and running. What then presents the opportunity working with OneKloudX is to extend that standalone eftsure solution to an integrated approach or solution into your ERP. And the beautiful thing there is that, again, it eliminates further data capture in that the information is flowing direct from our solution into your ERP, and you therefore continue to live and work in the ERP environment that you're used to. That's the presentation. I will just show you quickly, because I can see we have got some time, and please feel free to reach out any questions but I will show you just a sense of what our overlay looks like using ANZ Bank as an example. And what you're seeing here is standard ANZ banking screen, importing of the ABA payment file, and that's all standard. The only difference now is you'll see our thumbs. And the way we're achieving that is if you look top right, we have an overlay or an extension that's part of implementation, gets downloaded from the Chrome Store, IE or Edge. But importantly then is our customers simply click on our thumbs and they get the visual real-time alerts. And if they hover their mouse over the icon, they'll actually get a description of the nature of the issue. So I thought I'd show that to you. And Rob, I hand back to you or hand back to the audience to ask any questions that they may have.
Certainly, that was fantastic, Ian. Any questions from the attendees to Ian around the solution? So we're more than happy after this event to have a discovery with you to actually go through how you're currently managing your AP process today and how you're actually checking relevant information, whether it's in NetSuite or manual, for instance, like bank account details and the like. How are you validating those prior to making payment? So yeah, more than happy to get on a call with you. We'll send our details out later after the meeting. But here we go. Hi Heidi, thank you. So phone calls for verification required. Where is the call center based?
So Heidi, we got 2 call centers. One is in Sydney. We're based in North Sydney at 122 Walker Street. And then we've also got a call center in Manila. And if there's a specific request for other territory, we can make the calls from that particular territory.
Thank you, Ian. I'll jump back to the slides. So from an integration standpoint, obviously Ian took us through the vendor management aspect and the payment protection elements. So from a NetSuite standpoint, what we've done is we've synchronized with eftsure in order to provide that level of visibility from a NetSuite standpoint. So when you're managing new suppliers or you're making changes to new suppliers, what happens is those supplier details are actually checked against eftssure's database to confirm whether or not it matches the ABN number, the bank account details, and the like. And those verification and validations are sent back into NetSuite into a red, amber, green status on the supplier record. So you can actually see when you go in as to whether or not it's been approved and it's all good from a verification standpoint. So that's the first level of verification between the 2 solutions. The second is around the payment, ABA payment authorization standpoint. So when you're actually making your ABA payments from NetSuite through the PFA, that will also get sent to eftsure to confirm the bank account details for each and every one of those payees as well, in addition to what Ian showed you from the banking side of things, like the ANZ example that you've got. So I think we're covered in every single aspect to make sure that, one, the supplier information is correct from a user standpoint in NetSuite, whilst also ensuring you have that visibility in eftsure, as well as the payment side of things as well, and across the multiple, between the 2 solutions, including the bank. So that's the integration side of things. So an example is that of Solital, who I think you may have seen on the references that Ian showed. Is we implemented the integration collectively between the teams for multi-subsidiaries, multi-banks, and they're using it in their operations today. So that's that. Now at the end of the day, I think it took only a few weeks to implement. So yeah. So as a question that's come through, thanks Heidi. Does the creation edit information from eftsure portal or from NetSuite entered by our vendor master team, or both options? So it's both options, correct, Ian? So when we're making the actual...
Sorry, Rob, I was just replying. I was just putting in my
okay.
details. Sorry, does the creation edit information come from the eftsure portal or from NetSuite entered by them?
So NetSuite
Okay.
buys...
So yeah, good question, Heidi. So Heidi, what happens is, because we're the first point of call between the supplier and yourselves as a customer, we collect, and it's really the supplier self-serving, right? So the supplier self-serving their information into our portal, we then verifying that, and then we passing that to you. Then from that point, either your AP team will data capture it into NetSuite, your ERP, or the other option is to actually CSV file, upload that supplier details, information or data into the ERP. And the third option, which Rob and the whole collaboration and way forward is around a integration. And then NetSuite would be calling our APIs and our verified data, and it goes across then into your ERP. Does that answer your question, Heidi?
Perfect. Any other questions from the attendees? What time frame does the verification process usually or typically take per vendor?
Sure, Keith. Good question. So Keith, we quote anything from seconds, because that supplier is already verified, they're in our database, all the way up to 5 days. And the reason 5 days is because if the supplier doesn't then opt in for the bank link process, and what the bank link process is where they are actually logging into their own internet banking and pushing through their bank account details into our onboarding form. It's a technology used by Westpac Bank for online loan applications, and that's our second technique. But some suppliers are not comfortable doing that. We go, no problem, you don't have to. Then we'll resort to the manual telephone call. And the manual telephone call is a process whereby we're calling out. We're not relying on a contact details on a tax invoice that's independently sourced. And that could be, and then we'll verify it. If we can't get hold of the supplier, we'll try 3 times, and then we'll escalate back to yourselves, to the customer. But our service level commitment is from the time the supplier has onboarded and their details, bank account details need verification, we'll reach out to them within 24 hours. So on average, that's why we're quoting, seconds to 5 days. What we do find, though, is that majority of trading terms are 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. So we've got more than enough time to get that supply details verified before you need to pay them.
Thank you, Keith. Any other questions? That's fantastic. Enjoying the interaction. That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Can you advise an example of the script that the call centers follow when requesting bank details?
So the script is that we're calling on your behalf. So it's always the connection to the customer. It's because they don't know us. And then we go through our verification techniques and processes as described. and importantly, audit logged. We do have some customers who pre-eftsure was making their own calls, verification calls, and still got scammed. And there's different reasons for that. One of them, typically AP teams are not trained in verification. It's not what they do, but also there's no audit log process. And with us, one, it's what we do day in and day out, but importantly, we'll audit log everything, and that's presented to you. So who we spoke to, date, time, number called, etc.
Is it a verbal verification, or are they required to supply supporting documents, example, bank statement headers, etc.?
Verbal, Heidi, because the problem with bank statements and supporting docs, too easy to be photoshopped, too easy, so it's important that we do the verbal, and we've stopped a $200,000 fraud through that technique at one of our food industry clients, $1 million at an engineering company, and lot of other fraud prevention as well with that specific technique. But we only resort to that if we don't have that supply in our database, because if they are in our database, there's multiple techniques, cross verification. We do a three-way match between ABN number, account name, account number to trading names. There's a lot of sophistication in that database. And then if it's not verified there, then we resort to that manual call.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi, for the question. Any other questions? No, the room's gone silent. I think we can slowly start wrapping up if there's no other questions. This has been a very interactive session. Thank you very much for everybody attending. Like we mentioned, we'll share the recording. I think Prakash wanted to have the recording as well, so we'll share it across. Ian's provided his details. You can also email us at info@onecloudx.com.au or to myself, robert.jersek@onecloudx.com.au. I think most of you have my details, and we can arrange a separate time with Ian to go through your specific business requirements and align it all together. One last question from Heidi.
So Heidi, multiple sources, white pages, internet searches, and independent. And then we also take cognizance of, timing of ABN numbers. So when you're an ABN, the higher the risk, domains, territories, etc. But importantly, not of the tax invoice or not of the form, too high risk.
We have a lot of subcontractors, tradies, no websites. So
sure. So if we're unable to independently and comfortably source a telephone number, we will come back to you and seek assistance from the customer. So what happens if we look at that in the big scheme of things is, if you've got 100 suppliers, hypothetically, we've already got X number of suppliers in the database. It just depends on industry, geography. At one of our clients just recently, an implementation, we already had 70%, a utilities company, 70% of their suppliers are pre-verified. So that then takes a chunk out. Then we go to the bank link, it will take a chunk out. And then telephone call for those that we can't source numbers independently. We'll sit with you and we will establish a plan that you're comfortable with to then get it verified in that way.
Perfect. Keith, from a OneKloudX standpoint, what is a rough guide for the implementation cost timeframe for implementing the solution. So timeframe wise, we could do it in parallel with eftsure. So usually it takes a couple of weeks, considering most of the actual connectors into eftsure are fixed. So we're always checking the same bits of information and therefore getting the validations back into NetSuite based on those validation codes, and include any new validation codes as well, because they, as more and more elements get added to the solution, then we actually validate those elements as well within NetSuite. So from a cost standpoint, there is a license fee and a small implementation cost. That license fee also includes the maintenance aspects from it. So anytime there are any upgrades to whether NetSuite or any elements that are incorporated into eftsure, that is part of that subscription as well. So it's in our eyes quite inexpensive, and I can talk to you separately, Keith, around the cost and make it very attractive for the people who have joined today. Thank you. Any other questions? We're finishing a little bit early, so ask as many questions as you like.
So, how do we charge a one-off setup fee and then a monthly software as a service fee, typically with 12-month subscription? And we price depending on your total annual expenditure, and we also take into consideration your supplier and payment profile. So if you'd like a proposal, more than happy. If you email me, I'll send you just a little questionnaire of the different data points that we need. We just need approximations. We don't charge per supplier, per payment. It's just within a range. And then I can be more than happy to give you submit a proposal for your consideration.
All right. Any last questions?
No, it's great. We really appreciate the interaction. It just makes it so much better for us and more like relevant. So, guys, I understand as well. There's others. So, guys, thanks so much. Please feel free to reach out to Rob or myself anytime. Appreciate your time today, and look forward to hopefully chatting further.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me,
Robert. Thanks everyone for joining. You too. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.